All right, today we're jumping into one of history's most fascinating puzzles, the Inca Empire. We're talking about a civilization that was so incredibly sophisticated, so powerful, but from our point of view, how they did it seems almost impossible. This is the story of a true empire of paradox. So let's just get right into it. I really want you to think about this question for a second. How on earth do you build a massive, complex empire, one of the biggest the world has ever seen, when you don't have some of the most basic tools you'd think a civilization needs? Tools like these. Yeah, seriously. No wheel, not for transport, not even for making pottery. No horses, no oxen, nothing to pull a plow. No iron or steel for making stronger weapons or tools. And this one is the real mind-bender. No system of writing. How do you record laws or history or manage a huge state without writing? It just seems impossible, right? But the Inca, they did it. The question is, how? Okay, so to really get our heads about this paradox, you first have to appreciate the sheer scale of what we're talking about here. This was not just some small kingdom. This was a continental superpower. Just look at this map. At its peak, the Inca Empire stretched from modern-day Colombia all the way down to Chile. We're talking about 2 million square kilometers, home to something like 12 million people. This was a massive, thriving, complex world. And to its own people, it wasn't called the Inca Empire. They knew it as Tawantinsuyu. So how do you even begin to organize an empire that big? Well, the first clue is actually hidden right there in the name they gave themselves. Tawantinsuyu, in their language, Quechua, that literally means the four parts together. And right at the center, the very heart of these four parts, was their capital city, Cusco. To them, Cusco was basically the navel of the universe. And this map here really shows their administrative genius. They split the whole empire into 4 huge regions, which they called suyus. Each one represented a different cardinal direction, and they all connected like spokes on a wheel right back at the capital, Cusco. Super organized. And here's the part that's just wild. They did all of this in less than 100 years. I mean, look at this timeline. From 1438 to 1525, they went from a small local kingdom to a continent-spanning empire. That's an explosion of growth at a speed that is just almost impossible to believe. Okay, so they grew at this insane speed, but how did they manage it all without writing or even money? Well, the answer comes down to 2 incredibly clever systems they came up with. The first one was their unique solution for keeping records. This is a quipu, and it's so much more than just knotted string. Think of it as a complex, 3-dimensional system for storing information. By using different kinds of knots, different colors of string, and placing them in specific ways, the Inca could record literally everything, from census data and tax records to stories and historical events. It was like their version of a spreadsheet in a database, all encoded in these amazing strings. And this was the engine that built the entire empire, the Mita. You see, the Inca Empire didn't really have money or markets like we do. Instead, you paid your tax with labor. The deal was, in exchange for the state's protection and getting access to resources, every able-bodied person owed a certain amount of their time to the empire. You might be building roads, or farming on state land, or serving in the army. It was all about labor. And this quote from a Spanish chronicler, it just shows how detailed and, well, inescapable the system really was. It says people had to turn in a quillful of live lice. It sounds strange, but it meant that even if you had nothing else to give, you still paid your tribute. It was their way of making sure that everyone, from the top to the bottom, was woven into the fabric of the state, a system of total obligation and reciprocity. So you've got this empire built with such incredible precision, expanding at lightning speed. You'd think it was invincible, but its fall was somehow even faster and more dramatic than its rise. 168. I just want you to let that number sink in for a moment. 168. It seems like such a small, insignificant number, but it sealed the fate of millions. What could it possibly be? That's the number of Spanish soldiers, led by Francisco Pizarro, who showed up in 1532. 168 men marching into an empire of 12 million people. It's got to be one of the most lopsided encounters in all of human history. How was that even possible? Well, part of the answer is a mind-boggling technology gap. I mean, the Inca warriors, with their weapons tipped with wood, stone, and bronze, and their armor made from alpaca fiber, they were suddenly facing an army from another world. The Spanish had steel swords, full steel armor, guns, and horses, which the Inca had never seen before. It gave the Spanish a terrifying military advantage.
But technology alone, that doesn't explain everything. The truth is, the Spanish just happened to arrive at the absolute worst possible moment for the empire. It was just coming out of a horrible, bloody civil war between two brothers, Huáscar and Atahualpa, who were fighting for the throne. And even before Pizarro got there, an invisible killer, smallpox, had already swept down from Central America. It killed countless people, including the old emperor. It was just a perfect storm for collapse.
The final, devastating blow was the capture and execution of the new emperor Atahualpa. See, the Sapa Inca wasn't just a king. He was considered the divine son of the sun, the absolute center of their entire universe. By capturing him through trickery and then executing him, Pizarro basically decapitated the empire. He shattered its political and religious heart, and the great Tawantinsuyu just began to crumble. But here's the thing. The end of the empire wasn't the end of the Inca people or their culture, not by a long shot. The foundations they laid were so strong that a huge part of their world is still around today.
And honestly, nothing shows that legacy better than this image. You're looking at a Spanish church in Cusco, and it's built directly on top of the incredible stonework of an Inca temple. It's such a powerful metaphor, isn't it? The new colonial world was built, quite literally, on the foundations of the old one. You can topple a government, but it's a lot harder to erase its foundations. And that legacy is just everywhere you look in the Andes today. The Quechua language, still spoken by millions. Their amazing roads and earthquake-proof stonework, still being used. Those agricultural terraces carved into the mountainsides, they still feed people. And that core cultural idea of community and working together, that's still a vital part of life there. So that brings us back to our big paradox. The Inca Empire really challenges our whole definition of civilization. They prove that there isn't just one path to building a complex, powerful society. So the question I want to leave you with is this. What can we learn from an empire that thrived, that built wonders, all without the tools that we think are absolutely essential? Their story is an amazing reminder that human ingenuity can solve huge problems in ways we might never have even imagined.